Hi, my name is Michel Labrèche and I am the author of The Wizard of Oz. I am talking and making this video because I just want to address the public about the new consciousness state that can be attained not by methods or by rituals, but by simply intaking and integrating the energy that is present, that is almighty, that people call God, if you want. So the thing is this, is that basically a lot of people are on a personal quest for higher knowledge and consciousness to be able to reach a state of happiness and a flow of love and a flow of I would say intelligence behaving, and that would give a will unsurpassed. The thing is this, is that reality is so enormous that nobody at the ego side can really grasp it and surround it. So a lot of people, it's funny in a way, because they want to be touched by light, they want to receive light, but when light itself presents to themselves, they're not able to integrate it, assimilate it, or just simply receive it passively. Because people are in a thought pattern, they are a system of beliefs, and basically with all the dogmas and idealism that exists, people sometimes are brainwashed, are indoctrinated with some theories of some sort, and they always look for a guide or a guru or a spiritual leader to lead the way. And you know, when we say birds of a feather flock together, it means that anybody that will think about like what we think, we will have a tendency of meeting that person and making seminars and tapes and books and stuff like that. Now the real catch is to consciousness, there is nothing to do. Of course, you can attend seminars and do some meditation, some prayer, some ritual, read some books, and have a lot of things like that. But the thing is this, is that the more the ego wants to control his evolution, the more technically he restrains it of happening. Because even if he has good faith, the road of hell is paved with good intention. So basically, I'm here just to say the actual situation is that if we look around and we see what is happening worldwide, it's a real mess. It's a real mess in a sense that it's like blind people leading other blind people. Of course, the ego is the problem with humanity, because if the ego would not be there, then we would be able to partake and to share and to exchange with people at a real level. Now, we're only here for a period of some years, so we're in a passage, and some people live 20, 50, 100 years, but it all comes to the same, because we're being born, we get some kind of education, and then we're thrown on to go out to work, and at the end of our life, we eventually become sick and impaired, and that one day, you know, one day you die, and you might be 100, or you might be 50 because you develop cancer or some things like that. But we all go through the same process. There's an evolution that is happening, and this evolution is really the mean of what is life on earth. Now, a lot of people in their quest of higher knowledge, they are curious, they have some interest, and they are like subdued by, let's say, paranormal phenomena, or you know, the UFO phenomena or whatever, because it creates for the ego a certain interest. Of course, some people have some experience, like near-death experience, and the other day I was talking to myself and I was saying, we should be calling this something else, because a near-death experience, it means that we are near the process of dying. But in all the resume that I read books, people do really die. They go afar in another realm, then they come back. So instead of being near-death experience, it should be near-death or temporary or a brief death experience. Because for a while, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, the person after, let's say, he got up for a swim and then he drowned himself, or in a car accident or electric burst by thunder, he can be declared officially dead for a couple of minutes. Then he comes back and then he tells us of whatever happened. Now, in that matter, I met a guy. His name is Jean Rat, and he's a French person who practiced medical for more than 30 years. Now he's make more the administration of stress in a person's body. And he was saying to me that there are some cells that are called glial cells, and those cells permit to the body of the person, without the five senses, to really get a sense of the outside surroundings. So sometimes people could be technically declared dead, and with those cells, the body would kind of have access of whatever is going around him, even if he's technically declared dead. So this is a scientific way of trying to explain, when people say they went out of their body, like the movie, and if it was true, with Reese Witherspoon and Mark Ruffalo. Basically, some people are experiencing some stuff. Sometimes it's because of accident. Before they used to put chloroform with people to make them go to sleep, and then the person would just go over his body and describe all the operation with the doctor and the nurse and everything. And if somebody would drop an instrument, he could say everything that arrived with a perfect description. So that is muzzling a bit science, because they don't know what to know about that. Now, of course, we are a person, we're being born, we are incarnated into our body, and we are adjoined, in my understanding, a soul, and the soul permits us to live what we call experience love, and makes us in lean, in contact with the center of the universe, where is the seat of what we call universal energy, or God. So basically, our body can have some center of energy that are called chakra, and those chakra, technically what they do is that they absorb the energy that goes in our thought pattern, then in our lower mind, then in our throat, and then in the heart, and then the solar plexus, and eventually in the sexual center of energy, because it's like a flow of energy going down like this. Now, often through experience, we are having some knots in our energy field, and because of that, the energy is not flowing freely. And because of that, some people, they do yoga, meditation, and stuff like that, and some people go in therapy for parapsychology or psychologists, and it's good to do this. But sometimes, when a person goes to a seminar and have some kind of teaching by somebody, he has the tendency of repeating something that he doesn't understand. Like the other day, a friend of mine told me that if you dress in white, you would be having 9 times the energy of your flux body going out because you're dressed in white. And I just told that person, I said, why not 7, not 3 times? Explain to me. And she said, well, this is my yogi who told me that, and I took it for granted. So the thing is, it's important not to take things for granted, and to be able to have discernment, to be able to pass the information through yourself, and then to see if it vibrates or not. It's like when you hear a note of music, if it's flat, it's okay, and if it's not the right chord, then technically it could be a false note, and then your ears will be scratching. Well, technically your spirit, you should be like a violin, and your ear pitch should be like tuned to the nice music, or to the flow of information that is coming to you, but maybe not by channeling or other means. So most of the people are not ready to access reality, because the reality is so enormous that it would be blowing away people's mind if they knew exactly what is going on. So the immensity and the vastitude and the infinity of the cosmos and the universe cannot be grasped by one's ego. But in the meanwhile, what we have is we have people who have illusions, have system of belief, they can be some kind of mirage, have hallucination, and it's like, when you look into a mirror and the mirror gives you back your reflection. But sometimes the reflection can be distorted because a perfect aligned mirror is not really existing. The proof is that if you put two mirrors, one in front of the other, and you have an image in the middle, you will see there will be a tendency to have like a curve. So basically, you have to look out for that. So all of the medias and the people who are informing us are one level of information, and then there is what we call the invisible realm, which basically is retaining some information and not transferring it to us, and sometimes misinformation, that's something else that is done to have the person all mixed up in their mind to see what is what. And it could be at the level of social, it could be at the level of politics, could be at the level of the breaking news or whatever. So we are being told what the higher authorities think we should be being told, and they are being told what, by the invisible realm, what technically they think they should be saying. And basically, so with the discernment, you will be able to have, through your own process, the ability of testing or verifying if something is true or false or real. Because in my vocabulary, I use more the word real, because what is real is not in the polarity. If you have truth and false, then one is the contrary of the other one. And people say, well, there's a lot of truths around the world, but basically there is one truth with capital T. I'm saying that when you talk about that, you're not using the word truth, but you will be using the word reality, because multiple truths happens. And if somebody say, I have the truth and I have the truth and it's not the same truth, then it means the truth is relative or it's subjective. And if it is, then basically it means that it doesn't really exist, because it can be different for each person. But there should be only one order of things which include all the multiple truths, and this I call reality. So basically, we have unconscious people and you have conscious people. People that are unconscious are living in a matrix without knowing that there is invisible thread, little cordon that are attaching us to an invisible realm, which is trying to control us and feed off our loss of energy. And basically we are being dominated, manipulated, interfered with, tempered with, and without us knowing. So we think that this and this, an accident or an illness or whatever, it's all by bad luck, by mistake, by error, by accident. But everything is like in a Rubik's Cube. It's all fitted together, and there's a link between everything. It's not because we don't know where it's originated from that there is no link between those things. So basically, a lot of people are making movies right now for disclosure, and they are talking about the secret space program and all those sorts of things. And even if it would be true, when somebody hears about that, it becomes a knowledge. And the knowledge, if it's not verified, then it's something that is sort of saturating your hard disk inside yourself. And then you're not letting yourself the ability of being in a passive mode of receiving and intaking the energy that is descending from the center of the universe and that is supposed to feed you or nourish you. So you have to look out for people who say, I hold the truth, because normally they don't hold anything else than your wallet in their pocket. So, people, like we talk about misinformation, there's a lot of information going around that the 3D, 4D, 5D, then 12 parallel universe and all sorts of things like that. On my side, we have the physical realm, then we have what we call the astral realm, is like an energy layer outside of the Earth that is corresponding to the Earth atmosphere. And over that, then you would have what we call the etheric world, or the world without form. And if somebody dies, then he passes away, then his physical body is dismantled, reintegrated in the earth, and then his soul goes back to the soul dimension, which is the astral plane, and his ability to connect with the center of the universe is cut. Because when you lose the ability with your soul to contact the center of the universe, then your soul is in a passive mode of absorbing the experience of the previous life, and to build up a new life plan that when the person will be reincarnating eventually, he will have chosen the date, the parents, where he lives and everything, and to experience the best incarnation he can get. So first, by the way, some people, I have asked one of my friends, what does it mean 3D? And he said, well, 3 dimension, but what does it mean? It's length and height and the width. So it's like the axis X, Y, Z. And the 4D would be the continuum space-time continuum, that some races of intelligent people living afar have the ability to distort and to travel more than to... it's a way for them to move around, and they use hub. And all the movies you see in science fiction are really based on real facts, but all distorted. So the important thing in your life, as I think, is that since we don't have any control of whatever paranormal phenomena exists and stuff like that, we have to see to the power of now, of living your actual life. And if you have a couple relation, and you have a consort, and you have children, a family, and work, money to spend wisely, and on your passion, and to make some sport and have some friends, then that's fine. And this should be it. Some people are so overwhelmed with the paranormal activity or UFO thing that they forget about their own life, and then they are really obsessed with that. It's like in the movie Close Encounter of the Third Kind. The guy has a mental image implanted in his mind, and he really go crazy about that, and you see that in his potato, in his shaving cream, even in his courtyard. So you can understand that we are easily being influenced without us really knowing. When you become conscient, your conscience tells you that there are other worlds, and the little voice you are here in your mind sometimes comes from you, but sometimes comes from a parasite that is pirating your mind and trying to make you bad things or negative things or things that will get you into an experience that you will grow over, but it will have, you know, negative side. And basically, if we have free will and we know what to discern from good from bad, we should not be doing things that are considered bad, because it's not evolutive. And you know, whatever is good has the tendency of coming back and be reproduced in the universe, and whatever is bad has the tendency of just dying because it's not evolving. So a lot of people have a big problem with the fact that you have nothing to do to evolve. Just keep it simple, stupid, KISS, you know, the simple notion. And it doesn't mean you don't have to read books or view some tapes or go to some seminars, and because a lot of people have a lot of background to pass you on. But in those persons, sometimes they always have a favoritism of passing along what they believe in. Then it's not necessarily what it is. And to have a system of belief is fine, but to go above that and to be in the almighty inner immediate infused science is much better. And it's very difficult to attain that, because most of the people, they have behavior, they have hopes, and they have beliefs, and because of all that, they are not permitting the light to go into themselves. And when it does, usually it's changed a lot of things, and it's like moving around all the furniture in the house, in a sense that you have some thoughts, some things that you were taught, and education, and it's all in flim-flam, you know. So we're experimenting life, and life is a real happy experience when it turns out to be okay. But most of the people, if you look the worldwide situation, it's not a happy story for everybody, because there's war much too many places, and even in places where there's no war, there could be wars of neighbor. So like the movie with Danny DeVito and Kathleen Turner, War of the Rose. It could be inside their own couple, or with neighbors, or with your children, or it could be with another community. But the thing is that the ego is running around, and since the experience is personal to each of us, basically we all have our own truths. And because of that, then we're not getting along fine with everybody. Some bunches are getting along between themselves, and they are clans or sect or community, and that's okay. But the thing is that we should be, live and let live. That should be the saying. So basically, a lot of stuff is arbitrary, and a lot of people are stuck with illusion. And some people even told me recently, all is love. And I said, what does it mean? He said, well, there's love everywhere. I said, listen, go to the place where people suffer, and people, have grief, and so people have sickness, and people have wars. It's not an expression of love. Love, in the theory, is the expression of God's emotion for humanity, if you want. But technically, it's compartmented, and there's some places where love is not apparent. Even it could be in your heart, but outside the thoughts that people have sometimes would be hate thoughts and stuff like that. So in principle, intelligence is supposed to be everywhere, but it's not everywhere. And goodwill should be everywhere, but sheer will, which is different, is not everywhere. So just to let you know that things are different for everybody, I was in a seminar, and we were talking about love, and a guy told me, well, what is love for you? And I said, I won't say what is love for me, I will describe what is love. And I said, love, my comprehension of what is love is cosmic energy that has the ability of uniting all the intelligent consciousness in the cosmos, and to make them into a certain net or a certain link where you are conscious of your unity, but you are part of a universality. So it's like the drop of water that is part of the ocean, as the awareness of its own existence as a drop, but it's part of the ocean, and it's all undifferentiated, it's all together. So that was my definition of love. But most of the people over there, they answered what was the form of love for them, what expression it took in their life. And some people say, I'm lacking of love, I lacked of love in my childhood. What does love does to me, and I would like to have more love in my presence. Love has left me, and love is vibratory, and it's the exchange of energy. So a lot of different ways or parameters of describing what does love does to you. In this sense, when my wife leaned her head on my shoulder, and we just embrace ourselves, this is a form of love for me. But it does not say what love is. So, when you talk about love, you can talk about sexuality, nudity, intimacy, pleasure, orgasm, and a lot of different things. And a lot of taboo are around, sexuality, because it's something that is not talked a lot. And some people don't want to talk about orgasm, or about the fact that some woman can have a very fluid orgasm, and that's fine. But some people are more like to cover up this, not to talk about this, because they have an unpleasant feeling when it's too much in their intimacy, and we understand that. But at one point, if you want to go far in your quest for consciousness and higher knowledge, you must be feeling free of talking about any subject as long as you talk of it with nobility and with intelligence. So we are an experiment of God or the universal energy, and it makes me think that one of my friends works at a department where they cross genes of wheat and they throw at it little ticks, and when you have the wheat that is resistant, then it becomes a better brand, and then they cross it over and over. So when we want to have some bread with the wheat being crushed during the summer, if there are a lot of days without rain, we won't have like all the insects grabbing the food. So of course some people are mixing up with the MGO, like the genetically modified organism. And basically, when you do this, you can incorporate, I think it was, one of my friends was telling me that they take venom of snake or tarantula and they incorporate that into the food. So when a small mouse comes on the crop and just touch it, even it's like 1 part per million, then it's instant death for the vermin. But basically, if we are being fed with venom and poison and stuff like that, it's not really interesting, because in the long term we will have side effects, and when we grow old and we're 60, 70, 80s, we can develop bad illnesses because we were in contact with something which is not natural to the human body. In my book, The Wizard of Us, I have disclosed like a mathematical formula that I have uncovered by myself when I was 13, and I will just lead you to this. My observation was, if you do 4 times 6, that's 24, and if you do 5 squared, that's 25, so that's 25 minus 1 equals 24. And if you do the same thing, let's say 6 times 8 is 48, and 7 squared is 49. 49 minus 48, difference 1. I did that with that observation, and I was able to draw up a mathematical formula that technically was used in the ancient days to calculate, if you have a rectangular shaped land versus a squared one, what would be like the taxation and the squarage for taxation purpose. But if you go into the biology, and the formula is the cross of genes. If you have A times B, it could be in numbers, but if you put it with genes, it means that everything that you have in common with your consort when you have an exchange of genetic material giving way to a child, everything that is in common on your DNA change, okay, is like squared, and it's minus everything that is different on the DNA change divided by 2 squared. So you look up for the mathematical formula, but if you apply it in genetics, it can explain why when 2 persons have child, the offspring can be very different, because on the genetic chain, a lot of genes are similar and a lot of genes are not similar. And when I talk about genes, it could be like the gene to have blue eyes versus brown eyes and stuff like that. There were a lot of experiments done in genetics in the early 1900 century, but if you look at it this way, then it explains furthermore. Now, I have explained in my book why all the dolphins and the whale have a tail that is horizontal, and all the fish has a tail that is vertical, and there's an explanation for that. And where is the soul? I know that in the Bible or the Old Testament, it's very important for a lot of people and a lot of religious group, and they are being told that the soul resides in the blood. And I have given an information that makes a link between the soul and the blood, but it's not in the blood, but it's through the blood that the soul is magnetically attached to the physical body. Because technically it would mean that if we have somebody who has a car accident and we change all the blood in his body, and it could be like 20 liters, and we put with transfusion, then if the soul would be in the blood, it means that the soul would be elsewhere, and it would be a new person that would be habiting this body, and that makes no sense. So you have to have a sense of discernment and to be able to find yourself your own answer, and this is when we evolve. I even have a way that I explain that energy is trapped by the man and transferred to the woman, and the sexuality they express together in the act of love, when it's real love and not just reproduction purpose. Basically, it's like somebody would be passing over an energy, and the women has the ability of entrapping that energy and to raising the vibratory level of the man and the woman. So when we see that we have to play around with our Kulindini, when you do some yoga, they talk about yin yang, and everything is feng shui and stuff like that. Of course, the telluric energy is something from the land, the soil, the earth, and the solar energy is something else given by the star. But when we have blockage, of course, it has a problem of circulating freely in the body, and some people, through their ego, are being taught that it's while trying to control that flow of energy that is at your base of your chakra or your energy center, that it should be play around with this and making go back against traffic direction up to your mind, and then you would have the petal of 1,000 lotus. This is in the Buddhist theory or Hinduism, Hindu theory, but I don't agree with that, because there's a natural way of energy flowing, but you have to understand what is that energy doing. So the ego try to give its best shot trying to grasp the universal energy, but sometimes the most you try, the less you succeed. So when you are in the receptive mode and you accept and you integrate that energy, that energy will make some transformation, and you will be having and growing a new conscience. So the actual society, we are 8 billion people, and within 20 to 25 years, if nothing happens, we should be 16 million or billion people. So basically, I think that Earth is not fit to bear and support all those people. There will be too much pollution, lack of energy, lack of resource and stuff like that. The magnetic north and the real north are not aligned at the same place. The Schumann resonance index is at the top, and it's supposed to be 7.83 megahertz, and it went to 20, 30, now almost 100, and it's not normal, because we are being tampering with the microwaves and everything, and the effect of the global warming effect. This is a Tesla watch, and it owns a real Tesla technology with a patent. Like the Tesla cars are nice, but they only are electric cars that work with high efficiency lithium battery. There's nothing else than the Tesla name in common with the Tesla technology. When this watch is working, it takes all the ELF, extremely low frequency that is emitting by the microwave, the computer, the cell, everything like that, and it's transforming it and re-emitting it at the 7.83 megahertz that is a natural frequency of Earth. So basically, this is a real protection. Some people use sunshine, which is some kind of material that we find in, I think, Ukraine, and it's given by a meteorite that fell there millions of years ago, and it is only there that we find this, and then people are making small pyramids and small artifacts out of that. And it's a bit similar to lead, but it's different because it's like carbon-60, which Fuller Bocuse talked about a couple of years ago. So the thing is this, being the ozone layer or BBCs or fluorides or the smelting of the ice cap, which is intriguing people and making them very afraid of what is coming. You have to know that things will change and there will be a correction. At the stock market, when there's a problem and the stock are too high, there's a correction and then there's a crash. Well, it's always like this. Sometimes you have an inflation and then whoops, then there's a restabilization of the markets, and now what we call Mother Nature will be recorrecting whatever, and it's not through man activity that it will happen, it's through a natural process, but it could be by an error of somebody hitting on the wrong button and causing an holocaust or whatever. So my book required a lot of time, hours of redaction, about 15,000 hours, a lot of money I spent, but the thing is that when you take care of your own stuff, you take care of your relation with your loved ones, your friends, your family, your children, and your work. And of course myself, I'm going to be turning 63 within 2 years, so my initiation to this energy that is really very tough for me made me lose a lot in my life, in a sense that I didn't lose some weight, but I lost some energy, some relation, my work, money, and stuff like that, and it really been tough. If you look in the internet, there is on Amazon, my book is by ebook, is available. There are only the first four that are translated. There will be 23 books in total. When the rest is going to happen, I don't know, but if you look to the table of contents, you're going to see what is my topics, and it takes about an hour to read the table of contents, which is 35 pages long, and the intelligent consciousness progression of ideas there will lead you to see the global round wrapping that I have with my inner consciousness. So my book is all about the connection. The Wizard of Us means the wizard that we have within us. And it's funny because there's another book by Jane Austen that was written, The Wizard of Us, in 2012, where mine was written in 1995, but it's the same topics and way of explaining things, but her book is more an essay of describing the relation between all the characters in the movie, the lion, the scarecrow, and the Tin Man, and Dorothy, and Toto, and the flying balloon, and the flying monkeys, and the witches, and she did a good job. And she went on to go to Oprah, and Oprah is waving the book and saying, Wizard of Us, Wizard of Us. And technically it was my original idea, like L. Tenenbaum they did with the Wizard of Oz, OZ. And I have basically all the trademark and the copyright for that worldwide since 2015, because I was able to prove that I went to the ABA in 1996 and made some marketing of my book. This is where I met Jane Austen at that point. And I'm really glad that she did a great job with this aspect of analyzing and making comparison of all the book characters and reality and cosmic energy, intelligence, will, and love. So my quest and my unique experience led me to have basically tap into certain information that were not really available worldwide, and that's why in my book you'll find a lot of stuff that it's the first time that is being explained and described as the manner I used to do this. So the fruit of my research and where we are, where do we come from, and where this is leading on is all explained. And a lot of people make great movies, like the movies of that was done by Hubert Reeves, a Canadian that worked at the NASA, and they know how to ask the question, but they have no answer. They only know that in 20 years things are going to be falling from the sky, in a sense that some things must happen to put us back on the right track. Now, it's not the end of the world, but it's the end of a world, and it's the end of a way of living, which is taking everything for myself and partaking and sharing, but just at a very little level, because there's enough energy and there's enough resources on the earth for everybody if it's well spent and well retributed. But I don't think it is, and a lot of people agree. So there's a difference between reality and multiple truths, and that's why it's very important that we have a common vocabulary. And at the end of each of my books, I have about 15 pages of vocabulary that describing what is a soul, what is an entity, what is a ghost, what is a spirit, what is the mind, what is the will, what is an angel, what is a UFO. And because for two persons having different experience, the problem is that if they make a reference to a word, the word doesn't have the same meaning for everybody. And because of that, if I say I have a beautiful watch and the other person says it's not beautiful, I don't like it, well, it's the problem of subjectivity and polarized item. But if I say I have a watch and I have a leather bracelet, then that cannot be opposed, because this is the reality. Now, if I say I have a blue watch and it's black, some people could say, well, I'm not in agreeable with the color, or golden instead of yellow. It's not the same thing. So it's essential to understand each other so there's no distortion in the transfer of information, that people use the same vocabulary, and that's why I do this. So now my book will address psychology traditionally and seen by a conscious person, and the thought pattern. How does it work? What is the difference between an idea and a thought? And where those thoughts originate from, and what is at the base of that? And body, soul, and mind. I explain exactly what is the link between all this and with the spirit and the physical aspect of our person. And then I talk about all the emotion, all the feelings that we have. What exactly is that, and what is causing that, and where is it leading to, and what is death, and what is the principle of reincarnation. And I talk about some kind of religion like Hinduism, Brahmanism, Buddhism, Catholics, Protestant, the Jewish people, and each of their people have their own prophet that have their own oracle, and they make system of beliefs, and you have to be able to grow far over that and understand where those things apply in what parameters. So why was the law of creation? And just a small kind of irony here, when we are being told, well, the heaven and the universe was built in 7 days. How can it build in 7 days? Because if you have 7 days of time passing, it means that the earth is revolving, around the sun, and then there is 7 rotation of the earth. But before the earth was done, you could not measure time in days. So you have to understand that some things have been told us in our past that does not really correspond to reality. And who minds how much time it took it 20 billions of years to get to where we are, and maybe 4 billion of years to have Earth created and life appearing, and in the last minute there is life with man, and hope that we attain a high consciousness to be able to really expand our reality above the constriction of being stuck, of being on a planet with gravity. So I talk about all the cycles in the last 100 years since the crash of 1929 at the stock market until 2029. There will be 100 years, and there are maybe 13 or 14 cycles of 7 years, and it's all explainable, and it all corresponds to a certain note, like on the keyboard of 88 note when you have a piano. So basically I talk about the potential scenario of how it could end. It's never going to be the end of the world, but it's going to be the end of a world, and a new world, a new civilization will uprise from the ashes of the old one, metaphorically speaking, because it might be the real ashes if people are crazy enough to go to atomic bomb and neutron bomb and stuff like that, and then everything is wiped out on the surface of the earth except some crawling insect. So basically you are in a learning process, and one day you're going to be in action. And when you are a wizard in action, then you display your array of faculty or capacity, which are much different than actually all the person that have like ESPs and stuff like that. There's a nice movie done with Robert De Niro and Sigourney Weaver, I guess, The Red Line. That is somebody that wants to unmask somebody who's saying that he has a power but he don't really have, and it all turns around that. I think it's a 2012 movie, something like that. It's real nice, but the real powers of people having access to their inner potential when their brain's going to be functioning at 100%, more likely look like Lucy and Scarlett Johansson and Morgan Freeman. When the person attain 100% of interfacing with their brain, then they're going to be in a very higher consciousness and things going to be happening on Earth. So I talk about paranormal phenomena, I unravel maybe 20 of them, and I explain in my own consciousness the understanding I have about those phenomena. And it's not exactly what we are attached to. And I talk about notion of the future. What will be the powers or the abilities of the new race that will be born with indigo child, on this earth. And I talk about all my personal experience that I went through in the last 50 years. And in another chapter, I really explain what this meant for me and what I took from that. I did not go on a quest. I did not start a religion. I was obsessed with things. I only received and integrated that energy. So that led me to a certain preset of intelligence that I point out in my book. There's about maybe 20, 25 of them, and I explain everything. Like everything is important, but everything is irrelevant. But how can it be two different things at the same time? When you have the two sides of the middle at the same time, this is where you have the globality of the negative aspect and the positive aspect. It's like in a battery, you have the anode and the cathode, and so those two polarized things, plus and minus, makes neutral. But when you have the two of them, it's more than if you have nothing, because zero is an absence of something. But you have plus one, minus one, the total is zero, but you have two unity in it. That's much different. It's like Gestalt, a German guy said that the summation, the addition of all the units taken separately are less than them globally, and he has 1 + 1 = 3. And when you have that saying, it means that we have you, me, and us. So we can be two persons, but it represents three things, because the combination of you and me makes something else. So basically, I talk about a lot of books and authors. I think I have about 100 books I'm covering. The best book that I read and that touched me and that I think depicted the reality in a way or so. So I talk about a lot of books and a lot of authors that wrote those books. And I talk about a lot of films too, maybe 100 or 200 films, that when I see an image, a scene in a film that really explain and images the reality that I talk about, then to give an image to the person, I talk about that. And in an instance, another movie with Robert De Niro, Stardust, and Claire Danes, and Michael Pfeiffer. And in that movie, at the end, there's a final episode where Claire Danes holds her lover in her arms, and she says, "What does star does? It shines." And then the emanation of glowing love between the two persons is so strong that it blows away the bad witch, which explode. And that's the end of the movie. But it's a really good movie for a lot of different reasons. But that particular scene not only touched me, but sent me a message saying, this is when I experienced something myself. I wanted to explain that, and this is the way it is. And in my book, I refer to an experience I lived in 1989, which is 30 years ago, and it's exactly the same thing that they talk in that movie, but that movie is maybe 2007 or something like that. So it was done 20 years after I have experienced my own stuff that I took in my first book of 1995, that I repeated in the book Wizard of Oz, the collection, the sequel, Wizard of Oz 2 or The Sole Purpose, which is a 2016 edition publishing. So that led me to a final conclusion, and basically I hope that some of you will, be touched by what I'm saying, because I do know that some people, consciousness is not intended for everybody. So some people will look at this and say it's not for me, or he says anything, or it's a blah blah. And some people will be interesting, but he cannot prove anything. And some other people would say, I think he has a lead and I'm going to follow that lead because that's his universal consciousness, and it's more than what we call total consciousness, which is the later trend after the New Age movement, total awareness. If you are into a movement of some sort, you are being taken prisoner in a certain theoretical form of knowledge. And the thing is this, is that in pure consciousness, there is no word. We have to use word, but we have to make sure that we don't create forms or thought forms with the words we use, because then the person will really develop on himself a addiction to a form of knowledge, and this is not what you want. You want people to really evolve and to be able to themselves take that energy and descend it here and create new technologies and new understanding. So basically we will be witnessing a born of a new race, and it's a mental race, and it has all the colors and all the sex and everything, and old and young, and it's only determined by the intelligence and the love and the sure will that can inhabit and that can be vehiculated by yourself. And so one day, and that will be in a faraway galaxy or in a faraway way, we will be able to experience the three-dimensionality of the physicality, but without the restraint of all the propriety of the matter that have against physicality, like gravity, magnetism, irradiation, or even the fact of being very far away. So the Big Crunch theory for me will do exist, and one day the universe will implode on himself, but the force that will contribute to that return of energy at the source, like a salmon goes to the sea and go back to the river he was born, is mankind that will display the energy of love through a special consciousness, waving only intelligence, behaving with sure will to redesign the society as it should by God himself or by the universal energy. So to that matter, I'm pretty much sure that the goal of the universe is to recreate a new universe out of the ashes of the old one, like the phoenix, but in this sense that it will need a lot of little helps to go around and to help out the universal energy to manifest that. So basically that's why we are being thrown here, down to earth, having experience, and at what point the experience will be making part of the universal consciousness of all the beings that are telepathed together and are linked into a consciousness net of people, and it will be in contact with other races that have already conquered the space-time continuum and all the laws of energy that create matter, with what we call proton, neutron, electron, and stuff like that, and quasar, So basically, there's a lot of great thing being awaited on Earth, but we have to hit the critical mass of enough person bearing, holding within their mind and their hearts this precious energy of consciousness that will allow them to be in contact with other race without being obliged to fold in presence of something that normally you don't understand or you're not used to. So basically, life will be a colonization of all the realms at all the level for the benefit of pure pleasure, joy of the universal energy that will be flowing through all of the conscious being, be able to experience that. So in a few words, when we say, I said at the beginning of this video that people are saying I want to receive light, and then they are forbidding themselves of receiving it because they have blockage, and even if they want to receive it, basically their body is not permitting the access. So it's like they have built their own invisible firewall, and with all the experience undergone and the sadness and the suffering that arrive when we have bad things, it will create a rays of the energy in the soul that will one day be able to allow only good things, resonating things to happen and to be unraveling before you. So the real battle of good and evil is real, and the battle for the soul is much more tangible than you could think. And basically you have good forces, God, evil forces, Lucifer, and Lucifer is something that is, how can I put it, that polarity is part of the universal energy because all is within. But there are compartments where temporarily there are forces that are working against what we call humanity and mankind race. And the battle is real for the stake of the soul, but in the end, good must prevail and must win, because this is the next step and level of the evolution, to be able to master, to tame that uncontrolled energy, to be able to, it's like when man had a quest for fire. First, fire existed, but when it was falling on the ground, it was making, fire everywhere, and consuming forests and lands and stuff like that, and it still does. But at one point, man mastered fire and became able to make some fire. We have to do the same thing, but with that universal energy, to be able to play around with it in the best humanized way and the best intelligent way, with love and respect, and with will of colonizing all the cosmos. So, as for me, I am living this kind of a, when somebody is in the rafting, when the boat sink, he has his life jacket, and then there's a signal being pitched. This is what I'm doing right now with this video, and this message will be picked up by whoever has to be picked up. And as for me, there are some events in my life which I think I stuck the end of the bottom of the barrel, but it could be worse. It always can be worse, because when you are into an initiation process to receiving higher consciousness principle, basically anything that is not part of that has to be shed away and has to be destroyed. So it's like if you want to to remove paint, and you take a burner and you pass it on the fire, and then the paint is lifting off and incarcerated. Well, basically this is what's happening to me. So I just hope that in that footstep of the video I will make new friends, and I will have people, allied people that will work with me to the descent of this energy on Earth. And it's very difficult for me because I'm a French-Canadian person and I'm trying my best to do the English version, but one day it might be even given by somebody else who have a more fluent vocabulary than me. But I'm doing my best, so be used to my funny French-Canadian accent. So the thing is that we have one day to be totally free from anything. So no enslavement at the level of the mind, physical body, or even your soul. And in that process, we have to evolve to be a better race. So I'm wishing you well. I hope that this video made you at least want to have a peek or a glimpse at my table of contents of my books. And if you do so, and if you obtain them, well, like they say, the first 15% of the total work is translated. The rest is going to come one day for sure. When, I don't know, because there are so many opposition right now in my life. It's unbearable, and it's laughable, because I think like what I call forces of decay is taking all the best shot, the best swing they can at me, and they are succeeding into muzzling me in a way that I'm stuck of making like videos at my own place, and I'm not able to be public actually for a lot of reasons, especially my health at the level of my physical body and even in my mind, because we all have like a skeleton in our closet, and I have some, and the skeleton are taking over right now. So I'm trying to do my best, and this is the product of that. So wish you well, and wish that you can see other video of me. It would means that I'm still continuing my work, and that I'm still kicking air down on Earth. So in the meanwhile of reading you or meeting you one day, have a good day. Thank you.